Hey everyone, I'm here with a quick video on Diddy. Listen, next week, November 4th, not election day probably, so not Tuesday, maybe November 4th, November 6th, November 7th, but I heard the date is November 4th. He will be back in court, appearing before a judge, asking for bail for the third time. Will it be three strikes and you're out or three times a charm? Who knows? We won't know until next week. But in the meantime and in between time, both sides are fighting hard to prove why Diddy should stay behind bars, and Diddy's team is proving why he should be out on bail while he awaits his 2025 trial. Now, if you remember way back when the Diddy's defense team, they accused the feds of leaking the video of him beating Cassie to CNN. The feds are now punching back. They say, no, it was not us. As a matter of fact, we downloaded the video from CNN's website and we are not in possession of the original. So who really knows who leaked it to CNN? But shouldn't the courts be able to just call CNN and say, listen, you are required to let us know how you got in contact with said video. In addition to that, they're also saying that one of the lawyers, Ariel Mitchell Kidd, one of her male accusers that she is representing, that is accusing Diddy of, it's the similar blueprint that most people are accusing him of, giving him some type of substance, something to drink, feeling woozy. Next thing you know, the man was being violated, okay? And I'm keeping it a little cleaner than most of these lawsuits are. So he is expected to speak to the grand jury today. Now, will this particular accuser be a game changer? Will the people hear him and be like, oh my God, Diddy is really, really, really a monster and he does not deserve to have freedom up into his trial? So let's get into this story. Let me go ahead and share screen. So Diddy, feds say they didn't leak assault video, so the mystery deepens. I don't think it should be that big of a mystery. If they really need to know who gave it to CNN, you go to CNN and said, give us the email address to this, to that, to that, to that, so we can figure out who did this. I mean, we don't need Columbo for this situation. The assault video showing Diddy beating his then girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, wasn't released by the feds, they claim, saying CNN got it from someone else, and Diddy's arguments claiming otherwise are straight up false. So they're doing this now because when they go back to court, they want the judge to know, listen, we're not trying to railroad him on purpose. Whatever he did or didn't do is what he did or didn't do. And the railroading is not coming from us. It's coming from his alleged past actions. Prosecutors filed a motion in the U.S. District Attorney Court in opposition to a motion filed earlier this month, alleging he believed the government gave the video to the popular cable news channel back in May. And they basically say this can't be true because they didn't even have it yet. So that means when they raided Diddy homes, if they're saying the truth, they didn't get said tape from Diddy's house. So someone else had it. See, that's why I would not be blackmailed, because at the end of the day, somebody could blackmail you and they'd be like, oh, here's the original. Here's the original. And meantime, they got 20 other copies and they could keep coming back and blackmailing you again and again and again. If you're going to tell on me, just go ahead and tell on me. But I'm not about to pay you nothing so that you won't tell on me. According to prosecutors, federal agents had searched for the video early in the investigation, but it had mysteriously disappeared from the hotel server and didn't crop up again until CNN released the footage on May 17th. Prosecutors say they ultimately downloaded the video from CNN's website, but they are still not in possession of the original. As we reported in previous filings, Diddy team blames unnamed agents in the Department of Homeland Security, who they say are likely a source of the leaks, pointing out DHS agents are often quoted in news stories about Diddy's case. But that might have been before, but recently, if you remember, the judge gave a gag orders telling both sides to shut their mouths. Federal prosecutors point out way more people than federal agents have access to the tape, with hotel employees, the security team contacted at the hotel, and even members of Diddy's staff could have leaked the video instead. And That could be true. How do you prove it unless you go to see, unless you went to CNN and said who gave it to you, and they said the feds, how can you prove it? The feds insist there's no need for an evidentiary hearing into whether prosecutors leaked the clip. Well, now, I don't know about that. If I'm trying to prove something, yeah, we should have a hearing. Diddy's still locked up in federal detention in Brooklyn while awaiting a trial in his criminal case. He faces charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. He's also dealing with dozens is an understatement, of civil suits. We reached out to Diddy team. So far, no word back. Let's go back up here and we're going to play when Diddy's team implies that, the feds are being shady and they're the ones that leaked the video. But I will agree.
This is the type of indictment you would expect from someone in the mafia.
They always, and I ain't mad at TMZ, they always promote their TMZ channel now and their show.
Serious one involving that Cassie beating, the hotel beating video, and how it ended up at CNN and then out for the public to see. Diddy and his team believe that the feds played a big role in it coming out, and they are alleging in new documents they filed, they are alleging that the reason the feds were involved in this was to ensure that it was basically to dirty him up so the grand jury is basically to soften up the grand jury so he would be indicted.
So what they're arguing is that Homeland Security, according to Diddy's lawyers, that Homeland Security, they believe, leaked this video. And as Charles said, it is to poison, at least they claim that it was to poison the grand jury. It is an interesting argument. I don't know how they're going to prove that, but it's kind of an interesting argument because the Cassie video, as horrific as it is not part of the criminal indictment that Diddy is now facing. She is mentioned, but mentioned in connection with. Well, no, I mean legally, it's not.
I know he's not.
I
know he's not being prosecuted for the beating itself, but there is a mention of him holding her against her will, and it is very clearly referring to that morning.
But it doesn't.
At that hotel.
It doesn't align with the charges, and I think it underscores.
No, holding her against her people against the will is one of the charges, is in the indictment.
But it's not about that video. They're not arguing that video. No, they're not. So then the question is, look, I mean, they put it in there because obviously it is just incendiary to watch. But what they're
I guess my point is that video would have been shown to the grand jury anyway.
Well, it may not have been shown to the grand jury because it's not really relevant to the sex trafficking charges and the other charges.
There is a charge holding people against their will.
But they're not charging
kidnapping.
They're not charging based on this. That's the.
Do you know what the kidnapping charge is based on?
I know it's not this because we've checked with the people involved in this.
I think what's happening here, it's an effort by Diddy's counsel in doing his job to seize the narrative, the public narrative, and to make it seem like the federal prosecutors are overzealous in the prosecution of Diddy and being unfair to him. Because it does appear that assuming they released it, which is something that they have not acknowledged, and other people probably had access to this, but assuming they released it, it does appear that it was an effort to, at the very least, turn public sentiment against him and maybe even taint the grand jury. I do think, to Charles' point, the prosecution's going to try and get this video in regardless.
Oh, it's going to be part of the trial, but it's going to be part of the trial to show his MO and his character. And, we did a documentary, The Downfall of Diddy, the Indictment, where we actually talk with Diddy's lawyer about this. And his lawyer acknowledges, we may try to fight to get this thing kept out, but we're going to lose it. I mean, he essentially said it. So the jury is actually going to see this video, but they're going to see it not to prove the charges as much as to show the man. And that's why, and the prosecutor, and even the defense says, we're not going to be able to keep that out.
Yeah, so I think Charles's point has some merit that the grand jury is likely to see this, but it doesn't change the fact, I suppose, that the reason that the prosecutors, the U.S. Attorney's Office, put this out early was to try and sort of poison the well, both of the grand jury and the public, against Diddy.
We don't know, though. Again, we don't know if they did. We don't know.
Which, let's be honest, if they did, they're never going to acknowledge it. And I don't know how Diddy proves that they did.
I don't either. By the way, as we speak right now, there's a hearing going on in this case, and the prosecutor said that there may well be a superseding indictment with more charges. The U.S. attorney talked about this when they announced the indictment, and even said there might be other people indicted as well. And that's a big buzz in Hollywood right now, which is, you know, who might be involved, and are there going to be more charges against Diddy?
Hey, Harvey. Hey, Charles. It's Daniel from Brooklyn. And I just want to say, like, sorry, Harvey, but lawyers, you know, like they're going to do anything to make their clients seem like it's the law enforcement against them, you know. But we know that there is so much more to this case than that tape. This man is a monster, clearly. And yeah, it's possible the feds could have leaked it. But like you said, that's not the entirety of the charges. So there's a lot more things that he has to deal with. I think this is more to rebuild his fan base.
Well, I'm not sure that fan base exists at this
Nah,
point.
yeah, I was agree.
Yeah. It's going to be rough to get it back.
There is no fan base left. Well, let me relax. If there's a fan base left, it's very small. And this gets even smaller on the fan base that probably would actually speak up on his behalf. Maybe they're a fan base behind the scenes, but to speak up on his behalf, I think that that group is going to be very small. It's a hard thing to prove. Whether it's true or not, who knows? The problem is, Diddy, you beat on a girl, and it was caught on film. And so now you have to deal with what you did. But as they also stated on TMZ, does it have anything to do with the charges? It's a distant thing that it has to do with the charges. Showing that video in his trial in May 2025 and showing that video to any grand jury that wants to come with further indictments, it is relevant because they keep saying he was someone who enforced violence. That's how he got a lot of his acts done, you know, through violence and substances. So if you can show where he was violent to someone he knew and called a girlfriend for a decade, then you can only imagine the wrath that someone that was not a girlfriend of what he can do. Because he did this to someone I guess we could say allegedly loved and spent a great amount of time with, a decade. And he beat the mess out of her. So what would he do to Diva or someone else who got out of line? That was a female. But, you know, I say female, but Diddy allegedly, had problems putting his hands on whomever, right? Because remember, we got the UCLA coach where Justin, his son, used to go to that school, and Diddy went there to handle business because he didn't like something about what the coach did or said or whatever. So listen, guys, this is interesting, but the feds are saying it's not us. And currently today, yes, they are in court because there is a male accuser who is scheduled to testify before the grand jury. So I'm waiting to hear more about that today, and we'll talk about it once all the details on that comes out. Remember, in the federal court, no cameras, no nothing. Even if you're a reporter and you're inside the courtroom, you got to take it old school, paper and pen. You can't have no cell phone, nothing. So a lot of this new generation is going to be in trouble because they don't know nothing about no paper and pen. Everything is doing electronics. And then you ask them to do something that is not on electronic and they lose their mind. Sorry about that, y'all. Let me mute this. They lose their mind. So imagine going in that courtroom if you're a reporter and having to take that thing old school and get a notebook and a pen and hand-write that thing. Anyway, guys, chat with me in the comments. So when I get an opportunity, I will chat back. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so that every time I upload a video, you will be notified. If you are a subscriber, welcome back. Everybody, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this situation. The Fed saying it wasn't us. And do you think that Diddy's team even stand a chance of you know, proving that the feds had something to do with this? I'll see you in the next video. Hit the like button.